So the key question for us is to understand how and whether and under what conditions we can provide such integration, and in accordance with which it will be accepted by local communities. This is the first very important point. It will protect local communities, their culture, and their traditions. And the third one is and how this will support survival of local communities from various dimensions. And we are currently in the process of this project, and methods which we use are very mixed. So it includes literature review and other sources, includes interactive methods like communication via interviews, surveys, some maybe workshops. So we are currently discussing this, what will be most suitable for local communities in different regions. And we are focusing on different areas and different regions. Some Margarita will discuss it later. And so the central concern is to understand local communities. Therefore, communication with them is the core concern in this. So, Margarita, I pass the word to you.
Thank you, Olga. I will very brief because I wanted to leave time. I was monitoring because there are people who are not here and maybe they didn't manage to enter. I'm sorry. However, Olga introduced well the research we are doing in Itsoponosotros, and obviously we need these multidimensional frameworks. We need to build bridges, and what we are trying to do at the first stage is a community among communities in different countries. So we are collaborating with Leona, who will speak later, in India, but also with other representatives in Bolivia and in Kenya. So we are trying to really broaden the dialogue to find a common framework. Obviously, our first commitment is listening, understanding, and building trust. And then together co-design a possible framework with all stakeholders, with practical legal frameworks and also then technologies. We need to guarantee what to share and what not to share, because it is essential. It should be essential around the world. So this is why many communities, for example, from special areas, don't want to share anything. They are very skeptical. But as Elisa said, and maybe we say, we need to obviously have an open conversation with these technologies, because we can't avoid them. It's a paradigmatic shift. Obviously, one of the opportunities, so I leave the floor to Silvia, is the heritage. It's not the only. We are working on economical, environmental, and legal dimensions, but heritage and the risk to lose forever knowledge of people around the world is real. So Silvia, I leave you the floor.
Thank you so much, Margherita. I hope everyone can hear me. So I will start to say good morning, evening, afternoon to everyone. My name is Silvia Valeri, and I have a background in international relations and communication. But my interests focus on knowledge outreach, cultural heritage, and ethical AI. To me, cultural heritage is much more than preserving tradition, and I think that we are all agreed because I think that we had all the same focus to preserving tradition and protecting the past. Heritage shapes identities, strengthen communities, and provide the knowledge needed to build a more sustainable future. As AI become increasingly present in our society, protecting cultural heritage also means protecting the knowledge and values that community have developed over generation and generation. This is why communities should not simply have access to new technologies, they should also have the ability to decide how, when, and under which condition their cultural knowledge is documented, preserved, and shared. Through this research, we aim to explore how AI can support cultural heritage while respecting community ownership, cultural diversity, and local priorities, contributing to a more responsible and inclusive approach to innovation. So let me leave with one question. Today, AI can learn from thousands of images and reproduce design in seconds. But if those designs are deeply connected to our community's identity and history, who has the right to use them? And how can technology help to preserve this heritage without turning into something detached from the people who actually created this heritage and this cultural heritage? So I think that with that, our community, Hecho por Nosotros, can introduce and try to answer to these questions. Should I leave maybe the speech and the time and the space to Leon, maybe?
Yes, sure. Leon is a representative of Northeast India textile communities and is an enthusiastic entrepreneur, is collaborating with this project, is very proactive. So please, Leon, it's your turn.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this platform, Margarita, and everyone else. So first of all, I come from the state of Assam, India. And this is the place which has over 1.1 million handloom weavers, the highest artisan density on earth, right? And 90% of them are women. And I'm not here as an outsider talking about indigenous communities, right? I myself belong to one. I've spent over a decade working with artisanal communities on the ground. Now we're at such a critical space in time talking about AI sovereignty, but the industry also needs to understand that the whole foundation of the information age lies and started with the punch cards that are used in handloom jacquard machines. That is exactly what led to the information age, right? So probably the information and AI companies need to be more grateful towards the artisanal practices. Without them, they wouldn't be here in the first place, right? So today, AI is already reaching these communities through marketplaces, pricing algorithms, and so-called digital programs. But the truth is, all of them are designed elsewhere and imposed on them. None of them are co-designed. An artisan's heritage, her knowledge of the craft, her designs, her data, all of these become inputs for systems she has never consented to. This is exactly the gap we need to close down. And our core belief is that sovereignty isn't a policy layer added after the technology. It has to be designed before anything is deployed. So we are working on involving local communities right from the beginning while correcting data labeling, right? Correct data labeling is where everything starts from. And communities must define their own needs before any AI project starts, not to be consulted after the design is done. Just to give an example, data sovereignty depends on whether an artisan gets to decide what pattern, price, and story gets shared and what stays protected. Just think about it. Big pharma, big tech, and other big industries do not share their proprietary formulations of medicine and their proprietary code base with the world. they use them as their leverage. So why wouldn't the artisans follow the same? They may not like to share the exact cost and the methods of producing 50 kgs of naturally dyed silk with the world. And if so, we need to respect their rights. It's their IP. But at the same time, we need to gain their trust so that they're comfortable sharing what they're okay with, right? And the legal and economic protection should be built alongside technology. Otherwise, AI for artisans is just extraction with better branding. Now, the next step is we need to create frameworks where community does not just receive AI, it governs the terms on which AI touches its knowledge, its designs, and its labor. We are slowly taking baby steps here in Assam, but I believe right now slow fashion needs fast execution. What we need next is capacity building with small number of artisans to start practicing what we're preaching. The frameworks that we're talking about have to evolve while in practice on the ground and not inside distant air-conditioned conference rooms. So our approach should be think big, start small, and act fast. So, and in the end, I would like to again end it by saying that we are as strong only as strongly we empower our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. Thank you. Meanwhile, I shared the link of INDA of Lisa Pezzoni. Lisa Pezzoni is the founder and lead architect of the Indigenous Data Authority. And we are very interested because you realize for your community, for your Maori community, what we are trying to create within Echopo Nosotros. Please, your follow-up.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you for that. Tēnā koutou katoa. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me back and having the opportunity to contribute to such an important discussion. When I was asked to speak about communities co-designing responsible governance for AI-driven technology, I keep coming back to one question, and I think we're asking the governance question too late. Around the world, governments are developing AI legislation and organisations are adopting AI governance frameworks, and standard bodies are publishing principles for responsible AI. And all of that work is certainly important. But before we can ask how we govern artificial intelligence, we actually need to ask who has the legitimate authority over the data that artificial intelligence depends on. AI doesn't create knowledge. We all know that. It learns from the data we give it. And if we don't understand the authority attached to that data, we risk building well-governed AI foundations that were never legitimate to begin with. Everyday organisations collect information about people and communities, you know, schools, research, all of those sorts of things. And they rely heavily on that information to deliver services. The issue isn't that they collect the data. The issue is what happens after they've collected it. And I think for most of us, that is a real concern, especially when we're talking about our Indigenous communities. Quite often, the assumption is that after collecting the information for one purpose, it automatically creates an ongoing right to retain it, to combine it with other data sets, to share it, or perhaps to commercialize it or use it to train AI systems. I don't think that's right or true. Possession is not the same as authority. For Indigenous peoples, this distinction is critical because Indigenous data is not simply information. It carries whakapapa or genealogy. It carries language and culture and identity and collective responsibilities. Those relationships don't disappear because data has been digitized or stored in the cloud or incorporated into an AI model. Authority remains attached to Indigenous data wherever it travels. And that's why I distinguish between governance and authority. Governance is how decisions are implemented. Authority is who has the legitimate right to make those decisions. An organisation can have excellent governance and excellent governance processes, but if it never had the legitimate authority to use the data in the way it now intends, those processes cannot resolve that fundamental issue. And that is why I believe AI governance begins with data authority. The Indigenous Data Authority was established to help organisations operationalise Indigenous data sovereignty in practice. We're not another principles framework. Our role is to provide a methodology that enables communities to define their own authority and enables organisations to embed that authority into the way they collect, manage, share and use data, including through artificial intelligence. That work starts before technology is introduced. Communities identify what knowledge is involved, who holds authority over it, and what can be shared, what should remain protected, and what the conditions are under which it may be used. Technology is then implemented within those community-defined perimeters rather than asking communities to respond after decisions have already been made. That's what meaningful co-design looks like. It also means governance cannot be treated as a one-off exercise. AI systems evolve, organisations change, and data is continually reused in new ways. Responsible governance must evolve with them, and that's why our methodology includes ongoing independent assurance, because trust is built through continual accountability and not a single assessment. It's not like a one and done. Although today's discussion brings together communities from different parts of the world, many of the questions are the same. How do we create opportunity without creating new forms of extraction? How do communities benefit from innovation while retaining authority over their knowledge? And how do we ensure that AI strengthens culture rather than diminishing it? There won't be one global answer because every community has its own governance structures, cultural protocols, and aspirations. Responsible governance should not seek to standardise those differences. It should be flexible enough to uphold them. Artificial intelligence has enormous potential to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals, but technology alone will never create equitable innovation. That depends on whether communities retain the authority to determine how their knowledge, data, and cultural heritage contribute to that future. For me, that's what responsible AI governance looks like. Not simply building better AI, but building governance that recognises authority first, so innovation happens with communities and not to them. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Lisa. Unfortunately, I tried to admit people, but something didn't work so well. However, maybe it's something about the organization. Olga, do you want to make a question to Lisa? Since we are studying and I know you had a question. Otherwise, I will proceed. I'm trying to admit people. Go.
Yeah. No, I don't have particular questions to Lisa, so maybe about some community engagement. So what do you think? We can ask about some specifics of community engagement.
Yes, Lisa, what kind of obstacles? Maybe you are a member of a community, so for you it's very different, but did you find skepticism? How did you build this trust?
Or maybe some insights, how local community in general respond. Maybe they have some wishes, some collaborations. So overall.
I think from our perspective, there's three questions that always need to be asked. So who gave authority over the data to be used? Who has authority over the data whilst it's being used? And then who has authority over the data to stop it from being used? Which are three very simple questions. I think the other thing is also, like, we've obviously created a certification process in which it is a global foundational understanding of Indigenous data, and but in doing so, it's been done in a way that keeps the integrity of each First Nations or community or tribe or chief or whoever is in charge of that area. It keeps that integrity intact. We're not teaching people how to do things or the right way to do things. We're just giving that foundational understanding of authority and what that means to Indigenous people, because the main thing that we've come across is that the harm happens when misunderstanding is there, and that's often around Indigenous data and what that is, because it is not a commodity to be bought and sold. It is relational. It is our land. It is our language. It is our culture. When you start having conversations with people about that, the trust becomes built quite easily, because there is it doesn't matter what nation you're from, it doesn't matter what country you're from. When you start talking about the relational context, it's kind of the one thing that Indigenous peoples globally share. So I think in that way, it's that collective understanding that helps build the trust.
And taking into account this ethical concern, what is usually, in terms of communication, what do they usually prefer? Interviews, just small talks? What usually they accept more of others?
So we have a saying here in Aotearoa, kanohi ki te kanohi, which is face to face. So I can email you, and I can email 45 other people, and there may be a different understanding to the very same words. But if we have a face-to-face discussion, we can have much more understanding. So from what I have learned is quite often it is face to face, even if it's on this. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if it is just on a Zoom or it's a whatever, but if you can see my face, there just seems to be much more trust that is built, because you can see that I'm meaning exactly what I say.
Yeah, very, very interesting and helpful insight. Thank you so much.
Yes, also with communities and with this community, we are trying to do this dialoguing, and then we will try to organize some conversation also through the distance gap. Sylvia,
It's also what we've done, like,
yeah,
when you're
sure.
talking about Indigenous and culture, it's what we do. We sit around a fire, or we are holding babies, or we are, do you know what I mean? Like, it's part of who we are, and it doesn't matter what country you come from. Indigenous people globally, that's what we do. We come together.
Yes, nice. So we are discovering this. So we need only to build this initial trust. Sylvia, Sarah?
No, to me, it's really interesting because we study in the university, in the communication master, that at the end, even in the future, the main way to interact with people, the main important way, it will always be in person. So I am totally agree with Lisa, because it's actually what I mean, I think that we are not losing this. I don't think we will lose this. No, I have hope, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we are. Sarah,
Yeah.
would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I've been listening to you guys, and I really like what you're saying. I'm not really prepared to say anything, but I'm very interested to you, Lisa. What do you feel sometimes like the relationship can change over time? Like you speak face to face with the indigenous community, but maybe after a while the government's models are changing, if it's a country or it's another implementation. And what happens there? Do you feel like, have you experienced something like that when an outsider come in? And then for me to speak, for instance, of Botswana, we have some CBRN models, and it changes over time with land use and the indigenous communities. So, for instance, a contract for 5 years, it can change the relationships, and some other community chief is coming in. How do you deal with that? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think I do. I think there's always going to be changes in relationships, and how that is forged is dependent on who is having the conversations.
Yeah.
I've done a few keynote speeches at conferences in other countries, and one of the things, and it probably is a little bit loud and out there, but one of the things that I say is Indigenous people, we're no longer asking for a seat at the table. It's our table.
Yeah,
It's our table. And whilst we understand that the governments, they're going to put in place check boxes and funding and things that we have to tick the box, that's not to say that we need to lose ourselves inside of that. It means that we just need to think a little bit more authentically. So for a long time, we have been asked questions and we've had to answer a certain way, I guess. We can be back to basics. We can be that communal spirit. We can be that cultural context. And when we start seeing those changes, I think it's important to get back to basics, if you like. One of the things that is really important for me and my business is that we remain authentically Māori, and that is leading with love. We don't teach our children the right way by smacking them. We teach them with love. We show them the best way forward. Do you know what I mean? And it might seem a little thing, but it is so important in terms of remaining authentic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Leon, Kayla also who is supporting us, and Frankie, many people didn't manage to enter. Someone wants to, Leon, go.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting conversation built around trust. We used to joke in our early days that the world runs on two things: trust and Microsoft Excel. So I'm not sure about Microsoft Excel. It might expire, but trust will never go away ever, right? It's the cornerstone of everything. Now, there are multiple aspects of it. For example, trust has to be earned. You cannot assume or expect someone to trust you. You have to earn it, right? So if you're dealing with the artisanal indigenous communities, the onus is in us, not on them, right? We will have to earn their trust, right? That's one. How do we do that? We can discuss about the tactics and strategies and principles, but transparency is always a good place to start with, right? That's one. Second, it also depends on the kind of leadership a community or an organization has. For example, the same United States of America was receiving more trust probably a decade and a half ago. But now, because of leadership change, the same country is not being trusted by its own allies. It has nothing to do with the country or its people. It has got everything to do with the guy who's leading the country. Right? That's second. And third is what gets implemented. For example, any country might have the best constitution in the world, right? But if the judiciary does not implement the laws well, people will lose their own trust on their own judiciary, right? So the people who are supposed to live the trust, they should be always held accountable by everyone involved, so that everyone gets more and more trustworthy in the whole ecosystem. People feel safe to share each other's issues, challenges, intellectual properties without feeling vulnerable that they will misuse us or misuse our ancient heritage or ancient designs. Those will not be sold out to some big tech or big corporate. So
am I just able to just interrupt there, Leon? I think one thing to be very, very mindful always, whenever you're in any community or any Indigenous area, is that good intent protected us never. So whilst you might be coming with the best ideas and the best intent, historically, it hasn't done anything for us. So, you know, when you're thinking about going into these communities, just be aware that good intent has protected us never.
right.
Thank you so much to everyone. I think
We need to come back.
yes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
We will ask you over the research. We will send you some questions more specific. Really thank you, because it's your work is precious and your case study is unique. Thank you.
Yeah.
so
Thank you
much.
all of you for participation. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you,
Bye.
Leon. Also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Sarah.
Thank you, Keila.